Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome back, everybody. Our next guest, Robin Chappell, he is an artist and creative person. He works with working in a range from architecture to acting, from fine art to feature screenplays. Creativity is not just a passion of his, but it is how he lives. In his adult years, he has worked a span of 8 creative fields, and his life isn't over yet. So there's still more to come from Robin. With his work, his artwork, and his writing, and his film production company, he works to seek both to entertain as well as act as an avenue of furthering higher consciousness on the planet. His scripts and the novel adaptations that he currently bringing into the world work on the level of entertainment as well as having a higher content embedded in them, but without overpowering them, so that he can subtly influence the masses and bring knowledge to the people. So why don't we welcome Robin to the show, and let's hear how this modern day DaVinci operates, because he's just an amazing person. So, Robin, I called you in the intro, the modern day DaVinci, but your one of your I don't know, your branding or something like that is 21st century DaVinci.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I call myself the 21st century DaVinci because, like DaVinci, I have many different directions, and I work to try and take those directions in ways that other people do not.
Yeah.
So, but unlike DaVinci, since we live in the modern age, I have many things that I've done, like writing video and, writing for screenplays, for film, that he did not have at the time. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I also call myself a visionary designer as well.
Yeah, I know that on the camera end, that they had a, what is it? They by the 15th century they discovered a pinhole that you could project image through a pinhole and then have it if it was completely dark, and they and as points of entertainment to the royalty, that you could have people walk past that pinhole and you could see their reflection up on the blackened screen or something like that. I wasn't
Right.
too sure how well it actually worked or didn't work, but that would be the 15th century precursor to our um, motion picture, right? And of
Right.
course, now is like, on a personal note, I was able to produce something here on the very computer that you're appearing to me on now, that I was able to create something that I got the opportunity to see on an IMAX screen. So
Oh,
I mean, very large format, right?
right. Yeah.
And it's become that much more simpler to take things from image to entertaining masses.
Well, and not only that, but cameras have advanced. I mean, my iPhone is basically a 4K camera.
Mm-hmm.
It basically captures images at 17 megapixels. There are cameras out there now that capture images at 32 megapixels. So those cameras basically capture more light than we can actually see. So when you see images that are created by these cameras, they look surreal because they have a definition that we can't even really, be able to process.
Yeah.
So, and DaVinci was basically seeing and creating things back in the 15th century that most people would not have even thought of for another 3 centuries, until the 18th century. The whole idea of human flight wasn't really accepted until, the age of hot air balloons.
Yeah. Yeah. I was also thinking about Mr. Gatlin with the,
Right.
because
Well, yeah, unfortunately, he was receiving his funding from Il Duco, the, no, I'm blanking. De Medici, Il Duco de Medici. And de Medici was basically funding not just the art, but he was also funding Leonardo creating instruments of war. So it's kind of like, the modern day people that, receive funding from, like the Nobel Prize, which, Alfred Nobel basically created, dynamite.
dynamite, yes.
And so, it's,
Well, but it was this is what makes the whole dynamite thing, and we still have this, since we're going off on this particular tangent. We still have this mindset that if we create the super weapon, that we'll discover peace.
Yeah.
But
Not to get too far into conservative territory, but the whole Ronald Reagan peace through strength, which is nonsense.
yeah, it basically is. But Mr. Nobel, that was the reason why he created the high explosive, the super weapon, and we know now that the super weapon doesn't work.
But right. Well, even Oppenheimer and the rest of the crew at Alamogordo were not sure when they lit the first atomic weapon whether it would create a cascade effect and burn off the entire atmosphere. They were hoping that it wouldn't, that it was just merely a contained explosion. But the idea was that it would set off a cascade effect that would just basically incinerate us. So yeah, I mean the weapons.
According to the physics, that was a real possibility.
Right.
Especially
it
if
just
the thing ran off into infinity. It's like bye bye planet, right?
right. I mean, it just the whole process of setting off the explosion, yeah, was not necessarily considered a finite situation.
Yeah.
So,
So in that
and
respect,
then,
they also built the weapon with the idea, the super weapon, to bring about it's like, hey, we have this super weapon. Hey, Japan, we have this super weapon now. I would advise you to call off your
well,
attacks.
what most people do not know is that Japan had already basically surrendered at that point. But they had this project that had to go through fulfillment in order to show America as the first superpower, and that's why Hiroshima happened. Was
Yeah,
because they had to show that we have the power.
yeah. There was a few things that happened with the three bombs that were actually set off that that could have been handled differently by uh, President Truman.
Yes,
It
history is.
saved more lives, but that's
Yeah, I mean that's a whole other direction we can go into.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
history that was given to us and
But
the actual history that
but that leads me into some of your projects, your films, your books, and things like that, taking us to the higher power
Yes.
where we can understand that we how we're all connected and how we don't have to hate and fight each other, right?
Well, I mean, part of what I'm doing with both my screenplays, which will hopefully eventually, become films, feature films, and the novels that, I'm adapting from them, it is taking things using the medium of fiction to a higher level.
Mm-hmm.
So my last book I call a horror dash metaphysical science fiction book, and it is a very dark subject matter because it deals with the darkest of the dark of what is, ruling the world. But then at the end, the main character transforms into that which goes beyond the physical limitations that she had been previously living.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a tale of transformation and higher consciousness. But I'm taking the original very dark material and then I'm using it in order to be able to create this end product, which is saying that no matter what we invest in the illusions of this world, that there are levels far beyond what most people can possibly comprehend. And so, I take the fiction. My first novel was basically a romantic drama, but then I also took and put into it that it was not just a romantic drama, but it was also basically, feminism, women in politics, and the transition from men running the country to women, participating in running the country.
Yeah.
You
Well,
and
of course, we have both lived long enough to see a woman take the vice president seat.
right. Well, yeah. I mean, I I'm sure she loved him, but Hillary Clinton basically married Bill because she intended to be the president at some point, and she figured to basically backdoor her way into the presidency by being married to someone who had more of a potential based on our society to be able to move into that position.
Okay, so the interesting Hillary's a really good example of I should say both of them were a good example of two people who were bright-eyed in their young days about changing the world, and that conversation is what led to them becoming married. And
Right.
that conversation did lead to them being in the White House, but fortunately, some of the events that happened and everything did
Well,
they didn't have the huge impact that they thought they were going to have.
well,
So
yeah. I mean, that's another subject
I mean,
completely.
yeah, but that's again for the history books to write it out.
Right, but I mean, part of the reason why we had Donald Trump was because she assumed the presidency. She assumed she was going to be president. And so she stopped campaigning because she assumed, and one of my father's favorite sayings, I'm sure you've heard of it, is assume means you make an ass out of you and me.
Well,
So in that case, she assumed she was going to be the president, and you can't make that kind of assumption. But I mean,
yeah,
that's getting off track. But I
yeah.
mean,
You can't you when you enter a race, you got to keep running until
yes,
you cross the finish line.
right.
So
And you get into the politics of the whole situation, but we only have what is it,
yeah,
45 minutes?
yeah. So that's but
I
it's that
just
mindset change that you're trying to create, right?
right. Right. I'm trying to take people beyond a temporal limited mindset and pulling them through the use of fiction into a much more expanded mindset.
Okay.
So that's basically, you know, my next book that I've been working on. I really wanted to, be able to release on Valentine's Day this year. Basically, is another romantic drama dash romantic comedy, but it deals with ageism.
Mm.
So it's an older woman, younger man, but the older woman is 62 and the younger man is 42. And so it basically is dealing with not only his trying to come to terms with having the sex that he's having with women his own age is not really
Hmm.
fulfilling. And then the woman basically is, locked into a loveless marriage that she got into for reasons of security, but she's just really, at odds with her life.
Yeah.
And so they come together, and it's through their interactions that both of them move beyond that. And both Nothing Personal, my first romantic drama, and Happily Married, my second one, basically has the idea that, we need to find out who it is that, we're going to be truly happy with.
Yes.
I mean, the first story, she's 42, he's 28. Second story, she's 62 and he's 42. But it basically comes down to what do you want in your life and can you accept having it?
Well, I mean, at first, I think people would probably look at it as, oh, 62 years old woman wanting to have sex. Well, that in itself is ageism right there, because
Right.
it's like, oh God,
Oh,
she's
you
not
can't
supposed to
have
want
sex?
that.
Anybody over 45 is not supposed to have sex. It's like, that's, people under 30 years old, it's like, ew, mom and dad having sex, ew.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like,
but
well, how did you get here? Mom and
but
dad had sex.
but
You didn't invent sex.
beyond that, um, one of the things I enjoy about having a sexual relationship with my wife, um, in we're both being over 55 years old,
Right.
is the fact that we get to use our minds to help inspire the sex. It's
Right.
not just a physical act. Now it becomes a cerebral and sometimes a spiritual act, depending on the
Right.
conversation that leads into it. Right?
Right. I mean, you can have just sex, which is just the physical manifestation, and then you can take it, higher and have, sex being a divine act, which is basically what it should be.
Right.
So, once again, an elevation of what most people think of to something that is beyond what most people think of.
Yes.
I mean, we don't go to movies that have sex in them just to see the sex, because that's just pornography.
Yeah.
But we go to see movies because people fall in love, and also, the sexual component is there, but it's like they fall in love, so they find that which is highest in the other person, and
Right.
that's what drives us into the story.
Yeah. And that also leads to other things, commitment, blah blah blah.
Well,
But
and just to let people know that are watching, you and I had like what was 2.5 hours, 2.5 hour conversation before this. So there's always, like Rosanna Dana said, it's always something.
yeah, that's right.
So when you expand what your arena is, then you never know where it's going to take you.
Yeah, and that's part of that's part of the joy of living is taking things. Okay, I made it this far. I wonder what's beyond that now.
Well, hopefully everyone is looking to explore greater and greater depth. A lot of people these days, it's like, no, I've been hurt, I don't want to explore any depth. I just want to have, whatever I can, get or experience, without getting into all that other stuff.
Well,
But people are wanting more of that stuff, because people are no longer just wanting, the action movies. They're also wanting, movies that have greater depth to them. And this is something that has changed in Hollywood over the last 20 or so years. Sam Goldwyn of MGM said, if I want to send a message, I'll go to Western Union. But people want to see a message because they want to touch something deeper.
Yeah.
And so that's, basically what I'm working towards, is trying to get people to touch that something deeper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the thing also in your work, it seems that there's hope built into it, and that's something that it seems that more and more people are looking for
Yeah.
in their lives today. That yeah, we have a lot of electronic connection. Hey, we all walk around with one of these guys, but
I saw that. The Doctor Who screensaver.
yeah. Hey, okay. I admit it. Yeah. I'm a Doctor Who geek. Yeah, it's true.
Right.
And oh wait, and that really isn't a shout out to Disney either. Sorry, guys.
Oh, they bought Doctor Who now from BBC?
Yeah.
Disney wants to own everything.
Well, okay,
You
so
know?
that leads us to that mainstream corporate message. That they want us to be using all of their stuff to connect. And don't get me wrong, it's really cool that I can talk to you, and I'm about 1,500 miles north of where you are.
Something like that. Yeah.
And I can talk to you in real time. That is pretty cool. But
no, the technology is wonderful, but it also depends on what you put the technology to.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of video games, but the technology for video games is like exploded, especially now that they're using AI to further integrate the images.
Yeah. Well, I've watched my kids while they're playing the game. It's like he had a friend who was long distance, and that was how they would chat with it, was actually through the game.
Right.
Oh, in that respect, only okay. Can I really say it's a bad thing if there is some social interaction? But using that same technology to promote that, oh, you have to have this in order to be happy, you have to be this in order to be happy, you have to have this size in order to be beautiful, is that a good thing to have, you know?
Well, I think that the cutting point is when technology takes people away from interacting on an interpersonal level. And yeah, it's great to have kids interacting through a video game, but then they're not interacting through interpersonal levels. They're interacting through the process.
Hmm.
They're interacting through the game, which is you know most games are on the darker side because that's what brings people in.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I'm trying to do is to take the medium and pull people through to a higher level of content.
Yeah, to
Yeah,
something that's more divine and more loving.
right. I just my tagline for Nothing Personal is, well, my tagline for Dreams, Desires, and Dead Ends, my first collection of short stories, is with dreams and desires, there are no dead ends. And the one with Nothing Personal is it's about romance, dot, dot, dot. It's about sex, dot, dot, dot. It's about politics, dot, dot, dot. It's dot, 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 nothing personal.
Right.
So taking those subjects and kind of elevating them. And with Shadows and Light, my latest one, it's basically, part of what I do with my artwork is that, I do night scenes. So, my mother and father, when they first came to the first art show that they'd been to, which was, late in my career, my mother said, I really like your work, but why are they so dark? And I'm like, they're night scenes, Mom. And she was like, huh, I understand that, but why are they so dark? But I was focusing, I'm using, if you're familiar with chiaroscuro, Rembrandt.
Yeah.
Rembrandt isn't focusing on the dark, he's focusing on the light and how the light is popped in the image by the darkness. We see light in contrast to darkness. We see light when we're not necessarily seeing darkness all the time. We see light. And so my work is working to get people to see the light of the situation that is at the heart of each work, because that's where the spiritual essence lies.
Yeah. Well, as I'm a big fan night of the night sky and everything. Um, but that is where our window to the 14 billion years of creation can be seen.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for me, the whole idea that we're, alone in this vast, 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 vast,
Yeah.
vast universe is just, people are like, oh, well, they haven't contacted us. And it's like, well, Star Trek has been in our lexicon for 50 years, 55 plus years now. The Prime Directive states that you do not interact with species who are not of sufficient technological advancement to be able to move beyond their solar system. We are still using, light that candle. We're still using lower forms of technological advancement in order to just even get to the moon. Or,
Yeah.
case of Voyager, we've gotten to the edge of, the solar system and beyond, but that wasn't through the thrust capabilities of a rocket. That was through, um, that was through gravity and, using that, simple thrust in order to slingshot Voyager into the void.
Right.
But we're still we're not even a class 1 civilization in the Kardashev scale. And the Kardashev scale goes up to 5, or now they're, saying even 7, based on the advancement of the species. And so we're barely advanced, into the age of flight.
I wish to remind those speakers to limit their statements to no more than 3 minutes. In order to enable the Council to carry out its work expeditiously, please show respect to all the speakers on the list. Flashing lights on the colors of the microphones will prompt speakers to bring their remarks to a close after 3 minutes. You can always submit your full statement to be placed in writing later, but please limit your statements to 3 minutes. Thank you. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Luis Gilberto Maurillo Urita, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Colombia.
Muchas gracias. Colombia viene a hablar de soluciones para la paz, la seguridad humana y vital. Su Excelencia Vanessa Fraser, representante permanente de Malta y presidenta del Consejo de Seguridad.
Is Spanish one of your languages?
All right, there we go. I don't know. The UN YouTube channel kicked in. I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I just killed the window. It's like, get rid of it that way.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. So I mean.
Well, if we're going to go back to Voyager for a second, right? There was an episode in Voyager where the sky ship got, because they were caught in a gravitational pull. Voyager,
right.
And below the planet below, it went from Stone Age to being able to build a rocket before they even started understanding that there was an actual spaceship sitting up there in the sky. Well, we're somewhere, and by the time they actually were able to push Voyager off away from their planet, they still could not basically go past their own atmosphere, because going to manned space travel for us has never really exceeded going past the outer reaches of our own atmosphere, because the moon's still within the gravitational pull of our planet.
Right.
So how can we say that we're so technologically advanced that we can exclude another life form even being existing in our universe until we've been able to travel to a light speed or beyond, right?
Oh, I mean, we place these limitations on ourselves. I mean, Einstein said that we cannot travel beyond the speed of light. But, before quantum mechanics came along, we lived in a Newtonian mechanical universe. Mm-hmm. So everything was, gears and mechanical, we saw the universe in a mechanical way because that was the height of our civilization at that point. And then quantum mechanics came along and, basically exploded all of that. But we're still basically living, in a Newtonian universe where, our limitations are speaking. We're not, transcending our limitations except in fiction.
Yeah.
In fiction, Roddenberry had the idea. Well, I mean, Fast and Light Travel was, around before Roddenberry. But, the idea of warp travel, that was theoretical at that point, but it was still, everything was science fiction about it. But, we're almost to the point where we are learning how to do what I call transdimensional travel, which is going beyond the speed of light, because the speed of light is a physical factor. But if you get into higher levels of dimensional space, we can take and collapse that space, into an entry point and an exit point, which is basically what warp travel is. except we haven't found that yet.
Yeah, there's quite a number of science fact concepts that that the average person still chalks up to science fiction,
Right.
such as time dilation, multidimensional time, because who knows, the trick to a warp drive could be changing the dimension of time so that you travel a greater distance along a different dimensional time. But to the average person, time has to go click, click, click according to the Newtonian idea of the arrow of time.
Right.
In thermodynamics, right?
Time flies like an arrow.
Yes.
Fruit flies like bananas.
Exactly.
We are a species that is tied to our limitations.
Mm-hmm.
And fiction, and especially science fiction, is taking us beyond those limitations and expanding us, at least theoretically, into Kardashev 1 or Kardashev 2. But we're still, it's like the number one mechanism in humans is this thing called denial. We deny that there can be UFOs and higher intelligence because we don't have it. It's like scientists are looking for radio waves as a sign of life, but it's like any advanced species, radio waves is to us like we are to ants. The whole idea that, advanced species would have radio waves, no. And radio waves only travel very slowly, so there could be, a civilization that, has radio just outside of our, extrasolar area, and we just haven't picked up on it yet. But any species that is advanced enough in order to be able to do multidimensional travel, radio is not, hasn't been on the spectrum for 10 million years.
Very good point. Very good
so
point.
we keep looking for things that represent us.
Well, we're still talking about the wow signal.
Right. And they still, they don't know what it is, but it can't possibly be an advanced civilization because, I don't know.
Yeah.
Once again, denial is not a river in Egypt. Denial is, the basic motivation for a lot of people. It's like if it's not comfortable to us, we deny its existence. Like the whole conservative idea that, climate change doesn't exist because according to their, viewpoint, evolution doesn't exist. So therefore, there isn't anything that, goes beyond simple Newtonian physics.
Right.
And weather is simple Newtonian physics.
Yeah, well, yeah. That would be very true. It is simply based on Newtonian physics, but there's a whole another series of theories out there to be attributed to the idea of climate change, which is, I believe, is completely true. But
well, I'm not denying that there aren't such things as the solar cycles. Well, I'm saying that basically it's denial that we have not created the situation. Oh,
right. That's exactly it, right? Just briefly, one of the discussions I had with someone about it was that it's possible because, well, human beings have only been existing on this planet for so many thousands of years, right? Well, what if in so many thousands of years that our star or the sun, what if it hasn't completed its orbit yet and we're in some place that no other living thing has ever been in before?
It's
that is also a possibility, and that also could be affecting what we're experiencing on our own planet. But that's out there kind of a theory.
Well, it's like, science has basically come to the idea that there are 1.7 billion galaxies in just the known universe.
Yeah.
1.7 billion galaxies. And each one of those galaxies might have 10 million solar systems that are in it.
Yeah.
And so it gets exponentially beyond the pale to use our limited perspective as means of showing that, this is possible. Just Star Trek, Star Trek, in the 1960s, was a revelation.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that, we just started our journey to the moon, and all of a sudden the show is showing us that, we can go to other star systems and other galaxies, and showing it as just a part of everyday life.
Yeah.
And, Star Trek basically exists on the Kardashev scale of 1, maybe 1.5. Now, Star Trek has escaped the timeline that Roddenberry in the 1960s saw.
Yeah.
Lost in space, the Robinsons left, planet Earth to get lost in space in the year 1997. So we're moving forward technologically, but, our imaginations have advanced so much more. And Einstein said, imagination is more important. That's not the right word. Imagination is more powerful than, science. And without imagination, we do not stretch the boundaries of science. I mean, it used to be that, science believed that we only had 3 dimensions. Then they added time and added, a 4th dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Now science basically believes that there are 11 dimensions, and that's just our current understanding.
Yeah.
Humans only see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's based on some crystal theory or something like that.
Right.
The 11 dimensions, yeah. But going back to Einstein's idea of imagination and how it should be expanding, I think somewhere along the line that we human beings have been, especially Western human beings, we stifled that imagination to a cog in a wheel sort of thing.
Well, as a creative, my parents, hoped even into my 20s and 30s that I would, quote, grow up and find a real job and find a girl to settle down and have, a family with. But I decided by the time I was 18 that children were not in my future. Mm-hmm. My future was expanding even then. I mean, back then I was an artist and an architect and the beginnings of being a writer. And that was before I got into everything else that I've gotten into since.
Yeah.
One of the books that I have laid out, but I need to go back and do redo the illustrations for, is a lookbook that basically traces my evolution from Star Trek and Lost in Space through the idea of being an architect, through the idea of being an architect of alternative design and using alternative technology that, at the time was, very, very primitive. It's still, fairly primitive. And then designing buildings around that.
Yeah. And
so, I was dealing with the idea of what are called megastructures from the visionary architect Paolo Soleri. And then I was taking my 11th grade high school science fair project, was taking megastructures and putting them completely underground as a means to be able to both get the raw materials out without doing, gouging the earth with these massive excavation pits, and then filling it up back up with city, so that, you know, we could have as close to 100% usage of the land as possible. This is 1973.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, in some ways, you know, calling myself the 21st century DaVinci seems like it is being an egomaniac, being delusional. But I want the work that I'm doing to expand people's consciousness, to expand, you know, the possibilities that exist.
Yeah.
My book Shadows and Light is what I call book one in what I call the secret history of the world, where is I tagline it, it's the mother of all conspiracy theories. It takes and pulls in all the different quote-unquote conspiracy theories like UFOs and alternate history, and pulls it into a expanding the what if in people's minds.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to get people to be much more expansive in how they think about their world.
Expansive in which, in a particular direction?
No, in everything. I mean, I started off with the screenplays, you know, except for Shadows and Light, you know, with personal interactions and people questioning what they were brought up with. You know, another one of my screenplays books is basically two people that she, at the present, you know, at the opening of the book, is a police officer. And then he, who ends up being her partner, is an old hippie. But then throughout the course of the book, you find out that she used to be a hippie, but then she chose to become a police officer like her father and her brother. And he, even though he still holds these, you know, beliefs that, you know, being an old hippie, is basically an alcoholic who is, you know, struggling with what his life is like, and it's not what he originally thought it was going to be like. So they come together, and they basically, during the course of the book, come together to meet and then expand beyond what their original life was.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't write books just for entertainment. I don't want to write movies just for entertainment. You know, people have said, "Oh, why don't you just sell one of your screenplays? You know, you can say that, you know, get $1,000 for it. Say you know are a produced you know, screenwriter." And it's like, no. Everything I write basically has a higher purpose. And I do not want to sell a script to someone who will take and strip out that higher purpose and just make it just another, you know, Hollywood production.
Yeah. I mean, it's don't get me wrong, it's cool to see your work appear up on the screen, but
right.
If the story that you want out there isn't the story that appears on that screen, it's
right.
kind of a empty victory, isn't it?
Well, I met a woman at a networking breakfast who sold her first script, not option. She sold her first script for $1, just so that she could say that, you know, she had a, you know, a film that was produced from her script. And it was like, well, did they ever actually shoot it? Well, I don't know. It's like, well, and, you know, yes, you sold a script, but you sold it for $1. So in Hollywood, you know, that $1 is now her quote. So everyone else wants to buy a script from her for like $1,000 or, you know, $10,000, when if it's really of substance, she should be getting, you know, a lot more than, you know, $1,000 or $10,000. But she already set her limitation.
Yes.
She already said, I'm willing to work for nothing. And as a result, everyone in the future, until she actually, you know, sold something that, you know, would sell for much more.
Okay, but again, it's cool to sell it. That's what you want to do. But isn't it so much better to see it appear and see and watch it change the lives and minds of the individuals around you?
Well, I'm not gonna say that my scripts are going to be 100% how I wrote them. I would be one of those kinds of directors that would basically have people on script, on book.
Yeah.
And they might do improv for part of it, but when it comes down to it, I'm the writer and they're the actor. So the actor basically is going to do what the director tells them to do from the script that was originally done. Is it going to be exactly the same? No. But
it's okay. So you created one piece of art. That's the script.
Right.
The director is now producing his art, which would be the interpretation of his interpretation of your script. Well, that's okay, as long as a lot of the same ideas follow through.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, I originally wrote my scripts basically as a writer, producer, director, and writing them for me to be the talent, be the male lead. And I've gone beyond that. There are some of my scripts that, where I can still play the male lead, but for the majority of them, I've aged out of those characters. But I still want to produce and direct and have the basic themes still in place, or otherwise, why buy my script and then take it and change it?
Right.
My mentor when I first came to Los Angeles, 30 back in 1997, they were writing scripts that then got optioned and never made. And the one script that actually got optioned and ended up getting made, they basically went to the premiere and they started like slumping further and further down in their seats trying to figure out a way to get out of the theater before they were acknowledged, because the film was so not what they had written that they wanted to disown it. They wanted to disown their part in it.
Yeah.
I went to the LA Festival of Books at one point and listened to a talk by one of the big producers back in the 1970s. He had, half a dozen shows on. And he said he went to see his first, the first film created from a script he'd written. And at the end, he said there was only one line that, he recognized from his original script, when that was, I'll have rocks for that scotch.
That seems pretty innocuous.
Right. That was the only line he recognized. Was that the case, or was that a good, talking point? I don't know. But the thing is that, producers can hire someone to write a script and then they can craft it as much as they want for whatever, however they want. But if you're going to buy someone's script, you should at least, have it, similar to how the screenwriter wrote it. Otherwise, why bother?
Right.
Just have someone else write another script.
Yeah, and I have heard of in some cases where the script was bought and it may have been produced, but they had somebody take the script, tear it apart, and then rewrite it.
Right. Yeah, it's called a page one rewrite.
Yeah.
So they liked the concept, but when it came down to it, they wanted to have. I also met someone who, at one point, who claimed that he was writer 27 out of 28 on the original Batman. And that film was basically torn apart by the critics because it didn't hold together. So yeah, I mean, this is just part of the Hollywood soup that we're in.
Yeah.
People will buy a script and will have it rewritten and rewritten and rewritten until the original script is like the bare bones skeleton. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it's like, why have you even bothered, buying the script? Just have someone write, the script that you want. This is part of the limitation of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And that's why, I haven't wanted to sell one of my scripts, because I still am hoping that I can create generate enough money so that I can produce and direct it and have at least the majority of the story locked into the script. Not have it watered down, for content, not have it changed into something completely different, and basically trashing the original intent and content.
Yeah. Well, that kind of makes sense, especially since you're trying to produce the work to create a higher energy.
Right. And that's why I'm doing the adaptations. I figured out several years ago that if I can't get the money in order to be able to script produced, do the novel adaptations, then you have two properties. You have the novel and you also have the script. And then if hopefully the novel starts selling, which, I haven't done all the promotion and marketing I should have, when the novel starts selling, then hopefully that will attract money to the project.
Yeah. So we should have you back when you have the novel ready for release after it's been published, and we'll.
I've already released 2 of them.
Oh, then we'll have you come back and we'll talk. Let's talk specifically about that particular novel. So.
Yeah, both Nothing Personal and Shadows in the Light were released. Shadows in the Light was the last one, and it was released on Halloween last year.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So, what kind of universe do you think we could evolve as human beings to be in?
Imagination's the limit.
Mm-hmm.
The limit's not the speed of light. Imagination is the limit.
Mm-hmm.
And imagination, if you open up to it, can take you much farther than you could ever hope to imagine your current life being. I believe that there are civilizations that are so advanced that it's been centuries or even tens of centuries since they were at our level. Life is always advancing. Life is always evolving. We don't come into this world, sprung from the head of a god, fully grown. We come into this world barely able to take care of ourselves, and we evolve and grow into, hopefully, adults that can take care of themselves.
Yeah.
So hopefully humankind is evolving to the point where we can take care of ourselves, not continue trashing the planet, and not continue flinging ourselves towards the next ecological catastrophe, the next stage of evolution where we don't move beyond that evolution.
Yeah.
Imagination is the speed limit.
I like that. Imagination is the speed limit. Well, if somebody wanted to work with you, what's the best way to get hold of you?
Okay. All 3 of my books are on Amazon. You can look them up under my name. I can also be reached at Robin at 21stcenturydavinci.com. And I also have a 1-800 number, which is 1-833-319-2003. Awesome. So any of those can reach me.
Okay.
And I would be happy to find other people to collaborate with and move much further into the dreams that I've had for a while.
Awesome. Well, great talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening today. And hey, if you want to dive into one of Robin's scripts or one of his books or read his books, look in the show notes, and all of his contact and links will be right there. All right.
I can also put my LinkedIn or Linktree information in as a QR code.
Okay. Awesome. So,
okay.
Thank you, everybody, for listening today, and we'll talk to you later.
help us to go. And I looked up at that shooting star, and then I wondered who you are. I don't know your name, so I wished upon that shooting star, wondering if you feel the same. Is this destiny, or is it meant to be? Take me like a little child in your arms. We can drift away into another world.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.